Hi, my name is Mrs. Barnheiser. I'm a fun, cat-loving Northern Michigander who likes to swim in Lake Erie and teach philosophy. Today, I will have the honor of interviewing several esteemed guests. First, I will be interviewing Jake Sullivan, also known as Flesh and Blood Jake.
Hi, my name is Jake Sullivan. I'm 44 years old, born and raised in Toronto, Canada.
So how did you come to be in the situation that you are in right now?
When I was 17, I got in an argument with my dad. He suffered from a stroke due to rare arteriovenous malformation called Katerinsky syndrome. Now he's a vegetable forever in the hospital. I don't know what's worse, that my dad's in a irreversible vegetative state or the fact that the disease is hereditary. I'm around the age my father was when he suffered his stroke. I didn't want to end up in a hospital bed for the rest of my life for my mother to mourn over me.
So what did you do about that?
I found a vortex. I thought I found my solution to avoid my mother being alone and to continue living my life.
What do you mean you thought you found your solution?
Well, I had a mind scan made of me, and I was sent to the moon. While at the moon, I saw on the news that they have found a cure to Katerinsky syndrome that had controlled my life since I was 17. They cured my disease, so that meant I could live without fear of my brain arteries and veins rupturing. This also meant I had to live on the moon until I died. From old age, because I supposedly signed off my identity to my mind scan. My mind scan continues to live on Earth as me, while the original me is stuck on the moon.
Wow, that is quite an issue.
Yeah, one that someone could go crazy and hold people for hostage for.
Okay then, we have Mindscan Jake here with us too. Mindscan Jake, tell us a little about yourself.
Hi, my name is Jake Sullivan, and I am 44 years old, born and raised in Toronto, Canada. When I was 17, I got in an argument with my dad, and he suffered it from a stroke due to rare arterial. No, that was me. I actually experienced that in real life. You were created 27 years later, as a replacement for me, but you're not actually me. Agree to disagree.
All right, let's just continue with the questions. What do you think is necessary and sufficient criteria for being human?
To qualify as a human being is the biological makeup, such as having the five senses, in my opinion. A human being is born from a mother's womb with specific DNA coding. Humans also create a continuously improving community with advances in technology. I believe that a being can be a human without being a person. I agree that biological makeup makes someone human, but that is not what makes them a person.
What is necessary criteria for being a person?
Every individual has their own personal identity that they continue to develop throughout their lives. Things happen throughout their life, changes, and molds them into the person they are. This is what makes a person. A human being can be missing what it takes to be a person. A person has a moral compass and makes decisions based on what they believe is right and wrong.
Do you believe that Mindscan Jake is a person? Is he you?
Absolutely not. He is a robot using my face to live. He has my personality and has experienced nothing on his own. In the Constitution, it says we are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, among those being life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Like Maria Lopez said in court, without the same body, you are not the same individual, so you're not me. I am definitely not a human, for I do not have any biological makeup, but I consider myself a person, for I can make independent decisions, regardless if I've lived through the experiences in my life personally. I can choose which path I take next with nothing but my mind to choose. Being a different body does not change who I am in the mind. Like Martin Luther King said, we should not be judged by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. And since we have the same consciousness, the same character, I am you.
Flesh and Blood Jake, what does it mean to be a morally responsible person or entity? Would you consider yourself morally responsible? And is Mindscan Jake morally responsible?
To be morally responsible for our choices and actions means that we are aware of ourselves and who we are, and we act upon our values in situations where a decision of moral responsibility is required. So yes, I do believe I am morally responsible, since I am aware. And that thing, how can that thing be morally responsible when it is just a piece of machinery that claims to be me?
Mindscan Jake, your response?
I don't know. Someone who is capable of holding people hostage with a gun does not sound like someone who is morally responsible to me. But I am a self-aware person. I am Jake Sullivan. Just because my body is different does not mean my mind, my conscience is. I am fully aware of what is right and wrong and capable of making those decisions just like I did before I became a mind scan.
I think it's time to introduce our last two special guests, Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, our ethics philosophers. Hello, Mr. Bentham. Tell us a little about yourself.
All right, so my name is Jeremy Bentham, born 1748 and died 1832 from London, England, and I'm the founder of utilitarianism. I was sent to Oxford for a legal career, but I abandoned it to focus more on legal reform. I wanted legal reform because the conditions in England with its workhouses, debtors' prisons, and slums were shocking, and I was determined to correct them by working out a scientific system of law. I came up with the ideas that produced two doctrines surrounding hedonism. The two are psychological hedonism and ethical hedonism. I also created a basis for social and legal reform called the principle of utility, which is also known as utilitarianism. Unlike all the philosophers who believe that we are all rational human beings, I don't believe we are all rational human beings. Speaking of rational, when I died, I wanted my remains put on display.
Thank you, Mr. Bentham, for that thorough introduction. Tell us, what is utilitarianism as a moral theory?
It is the general concern with bringing about the most amount of happiness for the most amounts of people. It is the principle of utility to maximize pleasure and to minimize pain, for not just us, but for all the people affected. That's why I created the hedonistic calculus method. You list all the options and their outcomes or consequences, then add up all the pleasures and subtract all the pains to get the total. Wherever the bulk of one's happiness falls is what one should do or choose, because naturally we are all pleasure seekers and pain avoiders.
Do you think human Jake is a moral being?
For my philosophy, I would not consider Jake a moral being. Yes, Jake is a pleasure seeker and pain avoider being, but when human Jake decided to become a mind scan, only thinking about his own reasons and not what it could do to all those whom he will affect, for example, his mother and Rebecca Chong, when human Jake gave his consciousness to Mindscan Jake, there were more negative outcomes for the people around him than positive. If they were to do my hedonistic calculus model to measure their happiness of the new Mindscan Jake, it would show that they are not happy. Therefore, the actions of becoming a Mindscan was not a good action because it does not bring about the happiness, pleasure to those affected.
Very good points, Mr. Bentham. We also have a philosopher, John Stuart Mill, with us here today. Would you like to introduce yourself, Mr. Mill?
Thank you, Ms. Barnheiser. Might I say I love your outfit. You look ravishing today. I'll start by saying hello. My name is John Stuart Mill, born 1806 and passed away 1873. I was born in London, England. My father, James Mill, was Bentham over there's right-hand man. He had me learn Greek at the age of 3, arithmetic and English grammar after that, and Latin when I was 4. By age 7, I composed a work on the history of Rome with footnotes. At age 12, I worked on logic, economics, and philosophy. With all of the overdevelopment of intellect without developing emotions, I had a mental breakdown by the age of 20. I corrected this imbalance by immersing myself in English Romantic poetry.
Wow, you philosophers truly do not fall short of detail. Mr. Mill, what is utilitarianism as a moral theory?
Well, when it comes to utilitarianism, I believe ethics should be involved in the framework. Unlike Bentham, I wasn't concerned with the quantitative factors of happiness or pleasure. In fact, there are 3 different types of pleasures. I do agree with Bentham with the facts that we are pleasure seekers and pain avoiders, but we can still be genuinely interested in promoting the happiness in others. This is when I introduce the concept of external and internal sanctions. Overall, I believe that utilitarianism is compatible with the actions of personal sacrifice.
Very good. Now I'm going to ask you the same as I asked Mr. Bentham. Do you think human Jake is a moral being?
Do I think human Jake is a moral being? I would have to agree with Bentham on this one, since the action of becoming a mind scan did not add up to other people's happiness. It was an action of attempted moral worth, but it was wasted. Even though Jake was acting upon his mother's happiness to not leave her with the two most important people in her life in a vegetative state, it was a bad action.
So based on your theory that a moral action depends solely on the consequences of that action, that means I can make a decision with the worst intentions, but if it produces good consequences, is it still considered a moral action?
Yes, good is pleasurable. All people are pleasure seekers and pain avoiders. All people are looking to do what is best for themselves without causing any pain.
Wait, so if I destroy Mindscan Jake and Karen, and more good consequences happen, like Karen's son getting his rightful inheritance, my mother getting her real son back, and being able to continue my relationship with Rebecca, who does not like Mindscan Jake. These are good consequences being produced to those affected, so that would be considered a moral action?
According to my model, yes.
Do you not see a problem with that, Mr. Bentham?
As long as these mind scans are not considered a persons in society, for we must obey the laws of the land.
Wait, I do. I have a problem with that. We cannot just distinguish pleasures from one another just in terms of their quantitative factors when judging actions to be good or right. Instead of quantity, we have to look at quality. Some pleasures are better than others, and since we are pleasure seekers, we must distinguish pleasures from each other in terms of their quality. There are higher, superior pleasures and lower, inferior pleasures. I believe that we can truly care about people, and we do have feelings for humanity. We are genuinely interested in promoting the happiness of others. Anyone that agrees with Bentham is just a poor excuse of a rational being and a pleasure-seeking swine.
I am genuinely interested in making my mother and Rebecca happy again. No, you're not. You're just trying to get back to Earth.
Okay, on that note, I would like to thank you all for coming today and sharing your philosophical viewpoints.
Bye.
Peace.
I'm Mill.